Hello, everyone. Margaret Swift Thompson of Embrace Family Recovery, here with you today to share this special series that I'm putting out on the Embrace Family Recovery podcast. So I have done something that I have dreamed about, I have been suggested to do, and I have been fearful of through much of my career, and that is write part of my story. I am excited to announce that I am in a collaboration created by Women's Speaker Association, a book entitled Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. I, along with 44 other remarkable women from around the world, have chosen to write a chapter each based on the stories of our lives, our experiences about passion and purpose. And so I am thrilled during this series to introduce you to some of my co-authors. And in the next month leading up to the book launch on February 6th, I am honored and thrilled to share space on this platform with my co-authors. So buckle up and meet some of the women who I have been experiencing this journey with over the last year, leading up to the launch of our book, Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. So hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm excited and honored to introduce you to another of my fellow authors from Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. And it's my pleasure to bring you Brigitte from Australia, one of the few, I think 6 of you, is that right, from Australia?
There's five of us in the book, yes. Mm-hmm.
Amazing, amazing. Well, welcome, Brigitte. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you. I'm Brigitte Stills. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I've been in the industry for over 40 years, and I ran a business for over 27 years in real estate, and I transitioned into coaching, mentoring, and consulting. And what I specialise in now is I provide strategies and systems and various tools to property management teams and real estate agents to help them grow and to find their niche within their marketplace.
What made you want to be a part of writing? Is this your first time publishing? Is this something you've always loved doing and done it before?
Look, no, this is actually my second opportunity to be in the collaborative book, and it was one of these experiences. My first book was all about how I started in real estate as such, but this chapter is all about how I started in property management. Basically, that's where I really started in 1975. I started in property management as a part-time role, and from there on, it seemed to grow and grow and grow, and basically that's where it's got me to today. I had a few negative experiences with being within the industry, but look, it hasn't stopped me. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot of positive things about human nature, and it's helped me grow, and it's helped me achieve a lot. And I can't say that I was torn away from it in any way at any time, because I'm one of these people that's very resilient. And if I take something on, I want to see it through to the end. And it's motivated me in many respects. And yes, and I'm still doing it now, 44 odd years later.
Good for you. Good for you. So this is your second time collaborating for Voices of the 21st Century. So you felt like the first time went well, was a good experience, and wanted to do it again. What led you to do it again?
Look, the first time was a bit daunting in the sense that I didn't know what to do, because I was the only Australian author at that particular time, February of 2023. And I just didn't quite know how to market myself, what to do. I was having a few problems getting people to recognise it. And I spoke to various bookstores, and they weren't real keen about having it on the shelves because it's an Amazon bestseller in Australia as well as in 11 other countries. And it was a bit daunting in that respect. But then I had a promotion, and from there, it seemed to grow. And then people started buying the book and they started reading the chapter. And from there, it's got me into a lot of places. I speak within Rotary clubs and women's groups. I'm not exactly a speaker as such, but when you get me up there and you start talking to me about various things, I let loose and I can talk to you about it. And that's how it sort of came about. And then when the opportunity arose that I could partake in the next book, which is being released February of 2024,
Right.
I took the opportunity. And what I've said before, it's a little bit addictive. You do it once, you get a good reaction. Let's see what number 2 can do for me, but I'm sure it'll be really good too.
When you think about someone sitting down and reading your chapter, without giving away too much, because we want them to read it for themselves, is there something that would be a slam dunk takeaway? If they walked away thinking about or feeling something, what would you want them to walk away with?
I'm more drawn to the fact that I'd like young women to read the book, and it will help them on their path to success on the basis that negative things happen to you when you're young, and people have a tendency to be a little bit dogmatic in their approach, some men, the way they treat women in some respects. And I think that if I can do it, why can't you do it?
Mm-hmm.
If you're passionate about something and if you really like what you're doing, don't give it up. And the more you learn and the more you read about first timers like myself within an industry, I mean, you can be a trailblazer, you can get out there and you can be yourself. This will take you places. So don't ever give up. I hear a lot of women say to me, but that was in 1975. Things have changed. No, the world has not changed that much at all when it comes to women in business and women being entrepreneurs. We're still out there, we're still fighting, and we're still trying to get our foot in the door. And the more we stick to each other and the more we help each other out, the better it's going to be for all of us. So yes, read the chapter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Embrace Family Recovery Podcast. I'm so excited today to introduce you to another co-author from the book that will be coming out in February called Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion. And welcome, Karen.
Hi, Margaret. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me onto your podcast. And hello to all of your followers, viewers, and listeners.
Well, thank you, Karen. So I always ask people to introduce themselves because I think you do a much better job than me trying to summarize who you are and why you're here. So if you were to introduce yourself to the listeners, what would you say?
Well, I'd say my name is Karen Anderson and I'm from Australia. So if you're wondering what that accent is, it's an Aussie accent. And I am the co-founder of a charitable organisation called Escape to Better Foundation. So we support victims of domestic violence and family abuse, as well as their families, friends, workplaces, and broader community. And our real focus is on pre-crisis intervention. So once they find themselves in an abusive relationship, let's not leave them wait until it's really serious and they're in serious trouble. Let's see if we can give them the resources and the information they need to make very wise decisions about how they're going to leave and how they're going to sustain that leave. I saw figures recently that said on average, it takes 7 attempts to leave an abusive relationship. And so I'm a victim survivor. One of my greatest fears was that if I left once, it would be my one and only chance because the walls would really close in if I left and then came back again.
Well, and isn't it true that statistically when people leave is when they're most vulnerable for life-threatening abuse?
Yes, that is certainly the case. And I have seen statistics that say that abuse can linger for another 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean that you stay in the abusive relationship. What it means is escape gives you control of your environment and your access or the access your abuser has to you. And so that's one of the things. I mean, by the time I left, I had a solicitor, I'd been to the police, I had a counsellor. Not one of those people told me that I would be in greater danger or would maintain the danger level once I left. And I was working completely on instinct. And my instinct told me that he would be so furious that I would be in serious trouble. So I was able to keep my location secret. And this is something that we need to think about as, when we leave. that it's not always in our control to keep our location secretive. So what happened in my case was a utility company accidentally revealed my address. And even though I was in what I would call a semi-secure building, so an apartment building with a security door, he still managed to come in late at night in an absolute rage and just really thump at the front door. And I was very lucky I had 2 dogs. They just went nuts. But also because it was late at night, I'm thinking, I don't think I want to answer the door. And I actually saw him flee the building because he got startled by the dogs.
So your passion has come through your own personal experience to create this business to support women and men who are survivors and experiencing violence in domestic ways. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's right. So I am very much someone from lived experience. I am not a counsellor, but I'm a copywriter during the day. And that means that I have the ability to look at things from a different perspective. And I'm also 20 years down the path of when that first physical abuse occurred. Okay. And that has given me time and perspective to actually think about the issue, not necessarily consciously, but to really think, now is the time. It's time to change our conversations about this. It's time for me to stop keeping it a secret and to stand up and be loud and proud that I am a victim, survivor, and thriving after an abusive relationship. And I think that's really important, that it's not just escaping and surviving that. You can actually look forward to more. You can actually look forward to thriving.
And is that what led to being a part of the book? Finding your voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So my chapter actually talks about my emotional state after that first physical abuse, which was 20 years ago, and how I kept having these questions revolve in my mind, like, what the hell happened? Because I couldn't see it coming. What do I do now? And do I need to leave? And for me, it was Christmas Day. And so there's no one around. My family was in another state. I had to keep on pretending that everything was okay because we were contributing to the Christmas lunch. And so I talk about how I felt and how emotionally devastated I was after that moment, and why I was incapable of making a decision to leave. Because in theory, we think you get, hit or whatever, that's it, you go. And it's actually more complicated than that. But then at the end of my chapter, I also talk about this moment when I actually understood that I had some power. So I still was living in fear. I still had to be super cautious about everything I did. I still had a couple of years before I had untangled our relationship and could live a very independent, free life. But it changed my perspective, and that perspective gave me courage. And I knew if I could play the long game, I would have a really happy ending. And I have.
And if you had the best outcome of your chapter for a reader, what would you want for that reader to experience or walk away with?
So I think it's kind of two, and it depends where you are. So if you are in an abusive relationship, then I'm hoping that you'll go, so it is complicated to leave, but it is worthwhile leaving. And I do have my secret up my sleeve to give me courage. But also for the family and friends and even the broader community, I'd love them to walk away with an idea of why leaving isn't just a natural thing, why it isn't an obvious decision to make, and why it needs some careful consideration.
I appreciate you focusing your chapter on that experience when it happened, how it changed you, because I don't know that a lot of us, unless we've lived it, have that understanding. And I would think that anyone out there who reads it, who's experienced it, might get some sense of normalcy is a horrible word, but I'm not alone in what I experienced or felt. There's someone who gets that.
Yes. And that was really my purpose. I mean, I have never talked about this moment ever, not even with my husband. And in fact, he read about it for the first time just before I submitted the chapter. And I said to him, you have to read it twice, once to proofread it for me, but also the first time is actually to absorb it. And we made sure that the home was very quiet, very peaceful. And I could tell as he was reading through the chapter, my home got even stiller and intense in there. with his comprehension about, what I had gone through. And I don't think that we really talk about it. We talk about it in terms of theory, but we don't actually talk about it in terms of personal experience. And I think that's where being a copywriter and somebody who writes for a living actually gives me the tools I need to start expressing on behalf of those who aren't ready to talk about it, what it feels like and why it's difficult.
What courage, Karen.
Well, it took 20 years. So
no judgment. Doesn't matter how long it took. You got here and you put it out, and now you're putting it out to an international audience that's going to be part of a best-selling book.
I know. And actually, as you're saying that, I'm getting chills, because while I was very happy to write it, when I was signing off on that chapter and it was going into production, I just got this, I'm going to swear, so please excuse me, but it was like a holy moment where I thought, I don't have control over who reads this now, who knows about it now. And that was my, I know some people like you have talked about how you found it difficult to write.
I did.
For me, I found it difficult to actually sign it off and send it out into the world.
After writing it, that was the next hurdle. What I did was not reread it. I proofed it, did everything. I trusted Claudia had done her part, and it was like, whoop, we're doing this, no turning back now. So I relate. Yeah. I think it's an exciting, daunting experience.
Yes. And I think in some ways it's kind of like a freeing, we can wear it on our shoulders without actually knowing that it's there, and it's now out there. And so there's a little bit of a relaxation. Yeah.
Welcome, Zan, for being here with me. I am so thrilled to be meeting all my co-sister authors, because it's been neat. We've seen each other in meetings and we've been on this journey, but to get a few minutes with each person individually and get to know you is pretty special. So when you introduce yourself, how do you do that, Zan? Because you're a multi-talented woman. So what's your introduction?
You make me stand tall. Thank you so much, Margaret, for having me. And I'm proud to be in the Voices of the 21st Century book with you and 44, well, with us, it's another 43 women from around the world. How exciting is that? I'm excited to be in Voices again. Who am I? I am Zaneta Varnado Johns. Many people call me Zan. So on Facebook and social media, I am Zan Johns. I am a poet and author. I have 3 poetry collections. One is a bestseller, was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. I'm very proud of that.
As you should be.
Oh, it just gives me goosebumps. And then I'm in the Voices of the 21st Century book. This past summer, I created a journal titled the What Matters Journal. So I've got those personal publications, but in addition, I have poems featured in 70 plus anthologies and publications.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
So would you call yourself first and foremost a poet?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, a poet first.
Okay. And then other talents too. When it comes to being in this collection with other women authors from around the world, and the title of the book this year is Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose, which speaks to obviously every one of us who wanted to do it. Why again? Why this book? Why did you want to do this, Zan?
Well, first, I've been in 3 other Voices books. So this is my 4th time appearing in this amazing book. There's nothing like collaborating with women, 45 women around the world sharing stories. What could be more powerful than that? As Gail Watson said, we all have a story and we don't want to die with our stories inside of us. The title this year spoke to me, especially because this was what I had intended to write last year. But I chose a different topic. which was timely. And so when they announced the title for this year, I went, oh man, I already know. I've already got this written because it's about passion and purpose.
Sure.
It's about passion and purpose. Yes.
Sure. So when it comes to picking what you want to say, because we were given an amount of time and space,
Right. Yes.
And that was interesting and challenging in many ways for those of us who might be a little more wordy. When you look at what you wanted to write about this time versus the prior times being in the Voices of the 21st Century book, what was it? What spoke to you? What was it that made you say, this one?
I started my chapter with a verse from the Bible, which in essence says, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works. And that's what my chapter is about. It's titled Touching the World Line by Line. That's my tagline. I have it on my website. I have it on my business cards. I am touching the world line by line. And it was easy to write because what I wanted to do was capture or share what has happened since the publication of my first book, Poetic Forecast, in 2020. In those 3 years, Margaret, I've done some amazing things. I have to pinch myself. I'm blown away because I did not intend to do any of this. Once I published the book, my passion was unleashed. I learned that when you publish a book, people want to hear about you, who you are. They want to learn about you, just as that's what you're doing. We're in the Voices book, and you're presenting the 45 women. You're talking to us so that the world knows who we are. And so once I started to engage with social media and to go when it was safe after COVID, to get out in person and do poetry readings and sell books, my passion was unleashed. And I've been writing prolifically for 3 years, and I want the world to know what I did in 3 years. I want people to know that once you discover your passion and purpose, you're on fire. You can't stop. And I'm hoping that people read in the chapter who have not yet identified their passion or purpose. I hope that they will go inside. Go inside, pay attention to what moves you, what sets your heart on fire, and act on it.
So prior to the 2020, when you were published, were you always a poet?
I have been writing since college.
Okay.
And I wrote, but I shared in a small circle. Family. I wrote for events, family events, milestones, celebrations. I write about grief. I shared a poem at work once, and it was well received. It's the What Matters poem, which was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. It didn't receive the prize, but the nomination is, rewarding, right?
Absolutely.
But I wrote. So when 2020 came around and the world was quiet, that's when a lot of people published books.
Right.
And, it was quiet. I couldn't see my family. So here's the opportunity. The Lord said, here's your chance. Pull those poems out, dust them off, select the ones to publish. And that's what I did. But I continued to write.
Yeah.
So during 2020, 2021, our world was scary. We were dealing with COVID. We were dealing with civil unrest. Well, we still are, natural disasters. And so to process those things, I wrote poems. So before you knew it, I had enough poems for a second book. And that one is titled After the Rainbow, Golden Poems, because it was about the storms and the rainbow that came. My poems are golden. And then this new book, Encore, is in response to my audience, the readers, my encouragers, my Voices sisters saying, keep writing, keep going. And so I say to the public, this third book of poetry, this is for you. This is your encore. But that's the poetry part of me.
That's wonderful.
The voices part is equally excited. You know that in each of the books, I've been in the 2021, 22, 23, now 24. In each one, my poem is presented as the dedication page. That's huge. To me, that's huge. And I'm honored that Gail Watson invites me and commissioned me to do the poem. And I think the poems get better and better.
Do you have a little sample of the one that you wrote for this book? Is there a little piece of either your chapter or your poem that you would want to read?
The title of this one is Empowered Bells. ELLS. We are empowered bells, inspired by passion and purpose, right? Empowered through passion and purpose. And what I do, we meet from the beginning. We say yes, we sign the contract. And when we're meeting via Zoom, I'm taking notes. I am capturing, I'm saving whatever you share. It's my words, your words echo. When I'm off the Zoom call, I'm still hearing the words of my co-authors. That's how the poem is inspired. That's how I come up with the words. And I'm gonna see, just bear with me, give you a minute. I might be able to give you a piece of it.
We would love that.
Okay, just the beginning.
It's interesting to know your process too, because I did not know that's how you came to write the poem. And I think that makes it even more special.
It's a special one. When I sent it to Gail, I was so excited. And when she wrote back, she was very pleased. And it showed in her response. And I thought, yes, I knew these were the right words for the book.
Wow. How reassuring to have that feedback.
I'll just share a little bit because I have to save
Yeah, we got to save some for the
We have to save it, and it's a long one. I'll just give you a verse. It starts here. Inspiring story after story, resounding voice after voice. The richness of our narratives reveals the courage of our choice. We treat vulnerability as an asset, a conduit of interconnection. We greet each day with confidence, hope, gratitude, and reflection. I'll stop there.
That's
Is that
fabulous.
good enough for you?
Oh, that's fabulous.
A little teaser, yeah.
And so when a person purchases Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose, when they open the book, one of the first things they will see is that poem.
They will see that poem. And it feels so good. It feels wonderful.
Yeah.
The book is beautiful. This is your first time, right?
It is.
I cannot wait for you to receive your book.
I can't either. It feels surreal. I don't think it feels real yet. And doing this is really helpful because I'm getting to know players and authors and sisters in the process. Even though we're in the meetings, it's different. And when I got the book and you could read the whole thing, I was like, I don't want to do that yet. I want to talk to the women, hear their stories, and then read the book.
Right. I understand.
So your chapter, because you also have a chapter.
Yes.
It sounds like the slam dunk with anyone reading this, the home run, the goal would be that they give themselves permission to lean into their passion and purpose. Would that be fair of what you hope they would get from your chapter?
I want them to lean in. I want them to own it. I want them to act on it. And you know what? Once you discover your passion and your purpose, you have no choice, right? Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Once you discover it, it's what fuels you and you have no choice. And my family, now I manage my time, I manage my intake. I've got to be realistic, but I try my best to manage negativity. It's about positivity for me. And I have a poem that I wrote in 2021 about turning the TV off. I had to disconnect. The poem is titled Dist. It's disgusting. I felt disoriented. I felt discombobulated, and I disconnected the TV and started writing. I have to manage it.
I want to ask a question about your story in your life. At what age did you learn that writing was a place to process your feelings, your experiences? Like, what age did you first realize, wow, this helps me when I don't know what to do with something that I'm learning or seeing or hearing?
You know what? I wish I had learned it earlier. I started writing at 18.
Okay.
I didn't journal previously. I didn't write poetry. And for that reason, I raised a son and a daughter, and they have been journaling and writing ever since they could. Yeah, because I think it's important. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if many people will get to a point of wanting to publish what they write, but for those who do, it's such a great message to say, even if it's never public, to have this outlet, to have this ability to express yourself and work through things in a written form. I found it harder to write. I'm a speaker. I speak all the time, and I say a lot of things that people are like, ugh, can't believe you can say that. But it's second nature to me. To write, it took a whole different level of vulnerability for me. So it was interesting to go through. Yeah.
It's easier for me to write than to speak. Yeah.
But how great is it we can be unique and still find that outlet, whatever that is?
We make it work. Make it work. I've always written letters. Now that, in retrospect, that's a way to process. So I did write letters early on.
Yeah.
Love that.
I love that too. And I've come across some of my elders in my family's letters and journals, and they've been so rich for me to understand people in different ways. So I love that you've got that for your family, for your continuing generations to come, to get to know you in that way, because it is different.
Yes. I'm in the books now. On paper for all of time.
So hello, everybody. Welcome again to another part of this podcast where I get the privilege to sit down with my co-authors in the Voices of the 21st Century book that will be coming out in February of this year. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Kashan, who will share how she would introduce herself to you as a co-author in the book.
Well, thank you for having me, Margaret. My name is Kashan Parker. I am by trade author and transformation coach. And just by way of wanting to get my message out and my word out, I learned about Voices of the 21st Century through the Women Speakers Association and thought it was a phenomenal collaboration to share my message and be a part of the co-authored project for Voices of the 21st Century.
And was this your first time within the Voices collaboration?
Yes, this is my first installment, and what a journey it has been. I've heard many stories, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I think what Gail has done with this project is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I was nervous, I was afraid, but I felt nurtured and cared for throughout the entire process, which is always good.
I agree. It's been a neat experience. And to meet women from all around the world who have a passion to share their story in this format was wonderful too. So when you look at writing, was it a hard thing to do? Was it natural for you? How did the process happen?
Oh gosh. So when I initially went in, I thought I had all these ideas until I got ready to sit down and write, and nothing would come out. Like I hit a huge brick wall. And I was thinking, I'm like, oh gosh, what did I do? I think I made a mistake. Right? Just all the second guessing.
Sure.
And I remember talking with one of my fellow coach colleagues, and they were like, Kashan, just tell your story. Your story has enough power and impact in it that will move people. And they just were quite transparent with me and saying, you're struggling because it's your story. It's your normal. but for someone else, it might be a recipe for success. So just tell your story. And once I sat with that, I was able to just really sit down and, I got the chapter out in a matter of minutes. It didn't take long after that to get through the writer's block.
Neat. I had a similar experience. I didn't have a wall I hit. I was just procrastinating out of fear of the vulnerability of putting in writing. Feels very different than speaking it for me. So that was my challenge. Once I got over that, it also came quite quickly. Do you have history of writing in any other capacity, Kashan, or is this your first experience overall?
This is my first experience overall. I've done some, leadership collaborations and inputs, but nothing to this magnitude where it's more personal, right? I can talk leadership development all day, but when you get into the personal space, it requires a little bit more. It takes a little more vulnerability to get in there and open up some of those doors. So this will be my first.
Good for you. When you think about someone reading it who knows nothing about you and it's their first time reading your chapter, your story, what would be a slam dunk? What would you hope they walk away with without giving away all the content? But is there something that would mean a lot to you if that was the way they felt walking away?
It would mean a lot to me to have readers to look at whatever it is that they aspire to do. I find that many of us have dreams and hopes and aspirations that we never really fully tap into, albeit we are second guessing or judging whatever it is. But I hope that through my share, someone looks at that and says, wow, if she can do it, I don't have any excuse. And they just begin to challenge themselves and the beliefs that they might have and just do some extraordinary things with them.
So do you have a line or a quote from your chapter that you want to share, or do you want to just leave it for them to read it and hear in their own time?
I want to leave it for them to read it. I think I don't want to give away the magic of the chapter, but I will say it is definitely one that is inspiring, if I do say so myself, to just reach in with boldness and courage and, see where the journey takes you.
Remarkable, the courage and tenacity and strength of women to be vulnerable and authentic and share tips and strategies and resources from their story for each of us to learn from. Whether it's my chapter or one of the other women's chapters, I assure you there is something in this for every woman in the world to gather support, encouragement, maybe passion, light a passion in you. Come back next week when I introduce you to some more of these incredible co-authors, these women who have taken the time to write their chapter and be a part of this book. Voices of the 21st Century, women powered through passion and purpose. Until next time, take care of you.